course, the mangroves are going to not thrive well in an environment that's not going to be enriching for them, and that will exacerbate the effect of tsunamis. And I think this is something that even everyday Pakistanis, right? We don't understand the relationship of the river Indus, the people of the river Indus, like the people who live on the banks of the river Indus, and its relationship to the sea. When the river meets the sea, it is such a bountiful place, right? Thatta used to be a rice growing district. And then the British in 1932, when they built Sakhar Barrage, they said, no, Larkana will be a rice growing district. And we're going to dam the river Indus. We're going to draw out all this water. And eventually the delta of the Indus, which was what made Thatta a rice growing district, shrunk by a huge amount, right? Now, what was the result of this? Yes, in Larkana we grow rice, but another problem is that in Larkana, the land is not used to so much water. We need, to grow rice, you need lots and lots and lots of water. And what happens is that all the salinity that's present underneath the soil rises to the surface because the soil is simply ejecting the water that's going down into the surface and is bringing with it salt. So what that does is that it makes the land that could be used for rice cultivation useless because it's all salty. So we've lost 40% of arable land just to salinity alone since the building of Sakhar Barrage. Imagine. And Thatta now is one of the driest districts in Pakistan. The people of Thatta have no fresh water. The land is so terrible. And the delta is basically 10% of what it used to be. So, this sort of this constant belief that we have to dam the river, is actually very harmful for communities that live downstream, right? I mean, there's this idea that water going to the sea is water wasted, but really you're trying to say that water going to the sea is water wasted on the people who live by the sea. This is the real crux of the issue, right?
Mm-hmm. And why hasn't this been brought up to the government though, or whoever the powers that be? And what is the solution then for it?
I think right now, if we were to think of solution, a 100% solution, we're quite beyond that. I don't mean to sound like a pessimist, but we're quite beyond that. We're seeing, for example, when I said this year was the driest year, it was also one of the hottest. So Pakistan used to have this thing called the Karakoram anomaly, where our glaciers were growing actually. But now the Karakoram anomaly no longer exists. Our glaciers are shrinking. So when our glaciers shrink, it means that there's less of a store of water for our rivers, right? So this idea that we have to store water is actually becoming less and less useful because the river is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So even though we're getting these massive floods, it's not an indication that we have more water necessarily, right? If our glaciers are shrinking and we're just getting these huge flash floods of rain, it's not the same as, we have more water in the
more
Indus.
Like wasted water and less water.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the solution is how do we listen to indigenous populations that have been living literally in the river, and I mean the Mohana community, for example, that lives on boats in the river Indus. The Mohana was once one of 150 tribes that literally never left the river. They stayed on boats in the river, and they still live on Manchal Lake today.
Mohana tribe?
Mohana, exactly. So Mohana, Jabbar, there were all these different tribes that lived on the Indus, or they lived in lakes, and they understood the Indus. And now, and they understood the flow and the way that it swelled and that it flooded, that it dried, that it decreased, what channels to go in, what channels not to go in. And they understood what the land around the river needed as well, as far as farming, as far as agriculture. They understood the fish, they understood the breeding seasons. They understood and understand, actually, because I don't want to say they haven't disappeared. They understand this. And so one, we need to listen to these indigenous communities in order to better understand our water, because in Pakistan, water is our deepest anxiety. I think as a nation, and
And
not just the indigenous people of the river, but also the indigenous people of the mountains, the indigenous people of Balochistan, the indigenous people of Gilgit, Hunza, Baltistan. How do we work with these?
government बात ही नहीं करती ना, so we're like, oh,
No, nobody wants to talk about
yeah,
Balochistan.
they just put what Balochistan?
What? Who? Where? You mean that big province over there? Do you mind? I'm wondering. Can I respond to a text?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm using my phone.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna. I'm so sorry. Okay. So let's get down and dirty. Just like what is it you want to know, or should we just continue on our tangent?
So for me, one thing also, definitely I want to talk about the climate together as well, because I feel nobody really talks about it, man, to be very honest. Like कोई बात नहीं करता. So I think it's so important कि कोई तो कर रहा है, like, it's important to highlight, even like वरना सभी मर जाएंगे.
अब तो हम शुरू कर रहे हैं, मतलब as a country तो हम शुरू कर रहे हैं. For example, I was in this exhibition at Koel, and all the artists were talking about climate change, and I think this is something that if has become so urgent that people are genuinely scared, or if they're not scared, they've lost hope, right? So
that's not also good, losing hope.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a mixed bag. I also feel sometimes, like, as a nation, we're not that. I know it's interesting. We like to criticize other people, but as a nation, if we look at ourselves, we are not self-critical people. We don't.
No.
We don't. It's something about it. We actually get defensive when being criticized on our identity or anything. We're like, no, we're not gonna. There's no faults, nothing. Everything great. Pure as they come.
Right.
That's been a big problem, but. Leading from that, I also want to know from you, as somebody who is part of a political family, but chose I would say a different path. Sure, and I want to talk about how politics or interaction, and even religion to an extent has been in your art, and how you have mixed all these together, and how has that shaped your journey. But I also want to know more on that journey front. You were from a political family. You also faced hardships. What happened to your dad? What happened to your chacha? It's like, not many people in Pakistan have gone through that, especially people who come, who are part of a political setup. And it was really interesting. I read in your Voice of America interview था कि यार sacrifice देना क्यों जरूरी है, क्यों है ये हमारे अंदर के हमने ना शहादत देनी है. ये एक बड़ा मतलब मैंने एक पूरा प्ले भी किया था बड़े अरसे पहले. इस पे अबाउट एक शहीद के ऊपर था, बट उसकी अब नहीं वैसे हो सकता. आई थिंक प्ले है, मुझे ये पार्ट एडिट करना पड़े. बट वो शहीद के ऊपर ना, वो बेसिकली बंदा अपनी ऑल्टर ईगो से ना बात कर रहा था, एज इन शहादत की बात करके, मुझे क्यों शहीद होना है, क्यों, what is this reason that I need to do this, why, is it actually doing something good in the end. But just want to know your journey as an individual. How did that change you, shape? Because I feel these kind of things do shape people, change people. That is what make us. These are the experiences that make us as individuals. Hamare sare thought process. So talk to me a little bit about that.
So you brought up a few things. I know. No, it's okay. I'll as the inspiration comes. So I mean, I'll address, of course, first shahadat. At the time of the Voice of America interview, of course, I was living in the US, and my relationship to Pakistan was very different. And I just want to say, of course, I honor all shaheeds. And I respect all shaheeds, from my father, Shaheed Mir Murtaza Bhutto, to all of those who have sacrificed their lives, the unnamed heroes of our country, and many others also. And the word shaheed, I think in Pakistan we take it religiously, and of course there's a spiritual element, but it's an Arabic word and it means martyr. It's not a religious martyr. In Lebanon there are many Christian shaheeds. We have Shaheed Bhagat Singh also. Shaheed means witness, actually. And that's one of the names of Allah as well. Al-Shaheed. Ash-Shaheed, sorry. And Ash-Shaheed, we're not saying Allah is the martyr, of course not. We're saying Allah is the witness. So a Shaheed is someone who has witnessed the truth. And when you witness the truth, and this is not necessarily the Arabic definition or the Islamic definition, but this is my take on it. When you've witnessed the truth, the world, the realities, the systemic violence of the world cannot allow you to exist anymore. It has to bury you. It has to silence you. Once you start speaking the truth, the violence of the world has to silence you. And I think this is the problem with Pakistani politics. And this is what I have seen growing up since I was a child, is that yes, I understand people are not perfect, but those members of my family who did sacrifice something, and I think especially of my father, they were uncovering things. They were uncovering systemic issues, and they were getting a little too loud. And the political system here is not built for change, unfortunately. The political system in Pakistan is designed to punish the victim and reward the perpetrator. And I say this, some of the best examples are the blasphemy law and the Hudud ordinance. And what these laws are designed specifically to put minorities, and I don't mean minorities just religious, I mean minorities, women, queer people, etc. They're designed, these laws make the system so that it's designed to punish those who are victims. And this has unfortunately become a culture also in Pakistan as well. And I really think we need to start empathizing with the minority figure, with the underdog. And minority doesn't just mean the person who's less in number. This word minority is a political term. It means the person who has less power, actually. Right? And that's why minorities have certain special privileges, because we recognize that we have robbed them of the same kind of power that the majority has. And the majority is not a numerical thing. It's not those who are most, it is those who have most power. And I think Pakistan really plays on the majority-minority thing in the political spectrum. And those who try to change that are silenced. So for me, it's not that I'm scared of death or I'm scared of martyrdom. It's more so that I understand the system's not designed for change, unfortunately. We as Pakistanis have to design our own change. We have to stop waiting for the political system to change through elected officials. The system needs to be the system needs to be changed, gutted from within and changed entirely. We as the Pakistani people have to redesign it. And I think for me, the way that I choose to redesign it right now is through art. And I recognize that art may not be changing laws, it may not be changing policies, it may or may not be helping dolphins, but it is a language. and it is a language that begs for change, and it is a language that speaks to truth, at least the truth that I see. So yes, to answer your question.
No, that makes sense. And till now, though, 'cause I do know you have taken some like stances where I believe you refuse to work with a certain creator as well, because of their stance against Palestine.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I would want to know with what has happened, and this brings me to the second part of this as well. And I know you have also, from what I've seen, is that you also have some religious connotations to your art as well, or they're part of it in some way. And what is happening now, jo ab ho raha hai, especially when you see with the Shia community, what is happening abhi Pakistan ke andar, and it's been happening for some time. I feel it's not कि
With
एकदम
the Shia community, is that what you said?
yeah, with the Shia community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what is happening is like, और ये काफी अरसे से हो रहा है, there's been killings and stuff. But I see what is happening now though. It's like this, this with the TLP and this wave, जो बाकी एक दूसरी, extreme Sunni wali or Barelvi and all that, वो जो एक wave है, वो ज़्यादा strong होती जा रही है. And पहले बातें होती थी. I remember there was a time few years ago, and it's funny enough, मुशर्रफ के टाइम में, डिक्टेटर के टाइम पे हदूद ऑर्डिनेंस पे बात हुई थी. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember. Yes, I do remember.
अब आप सोच भी नहीं सकते. It is Pakistan is such an interesting country. Like a dictator के टाइम पे हुई थी बात. अब आप सोच भी नहीं सकते.
It's topsy-turvy for sure.
It's like literally a roller coaster, right? Like, wow, this doesn't make sense. It's like the multiverse, like this. Like,
You're right.
But yeah, how do you? I'm sure you have opinions on what is happening right now to the Shia community. This and generally, I want to know, how do you tackle with that? And generally, what's your opinion? Like, I know we discussed that change nahi aa sakta Pakistan. हमने बनाना है change. But what is that change? What does that change look like? Like, how do we start? Right. I feel a lot of people, we sometimes say this, and there's spoken language, but it's more confusing when you even think about it. You're like, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a very good question. I think, and it's definitely gotten worse with time, especially with the Shia community. I remember as a child, out of just simple pure respect, no eatery or cafe or restaurant would play music during the first 10 days of Muharram. And it's not like anyone asked for it. They just wouldn't, because it was just not okay. And now like no one, I mean, I don't know. It's oops, sorry.
Just add to this, it's interesting. Somebody like my dad used to tell me, is के मुझे बता दे कि यार देखो पाकिस्तान वो पहले they also used to be मुहर्रम में सुन्नी उसके अंदर भी there used to be majlis वगैरह. It wasn't just
it wasn't just a Shia thing.
majliसें हर जगह होती थी. And along the lines, obviously, this changed, right? And
some of the biggest majlises in Sindh, some of the biggest majalis in Sindh are hosted by Hindu families still, because it's a proud thing to do, because I think what's most relatable in the time of Muharram for people, whether you're Shia or Sunni or Hindu or Christian, is the idea of sacrifice, right? Of completely selfless sacrifice, and the helplessness of the Ahlul Bayt, and just how much they suffered, and how can you not relate to that, right? And this is why we say Kul arde Karbala, Kul yawmi Ashura. Every land is Karbala, every land is Karbala, every time is Ashura, because there is injustice everywhere, and every time is a time to fight against it. And this is actually something that I think makes the Shia faith very, very relatable to the Sikh faith as well. Shias have we have the 12 Imams. Sikhs have 10 gurus. And half of those gurus were martyred. They were shaheeds. So And so Sikhism says the same. Actually, Sikhism says every Sikh must be a fighter of injustice. So I mean, we have these interesting parallels, which is why there's this content creator on Instagram and just sort of academics, the Singing Singh, Harleen Singh is his name, and he actually talks a lot about the similarities between Shi and the Sikh faith, and he comes from a family that actually did have Husseini practices, and that's the thing. You can even distinguish between Shiaism and Husseini, right? So our family, for example, is half Sunni, half Shia, but even the Sunni side practices Husseini, meaning we have Sabil during Muharram, meaning we keep Shia names, meaning we all have an alam on top of our house. And the persecution of the Shia community today, I will, I don't want to say too much about it because it's not something I'm super well educated about, but I know that it's something that scares me, and it's something that is frightening also because many people like to deny it. People like to deny that there's an oppression of Shia people. People like to deny that there's a certain inequality in the religious landscape of Pakistan. And of course that's not true. But I don't want to speak on the topic as if I were an expert either. So I think that's all I can sort of lend to your question.
No. Thank you so much, Zulfikar.
Of course, my pleasure.
For being on this. Now I can let you go. But let me just
thank you. Thank you so much